Most people spend their entire lives chasing what they want, never realizing that what they become in the pursuit is the only thing they ever truly keep. Good evening. I want to talk to you tonight about something that most people overlook entirely in their rush toward achievement. Something quiet, something profound, something that has been true since the first man drew breath on this earth and will remain true long after we are gone. I want to talk to you about who you are becoming. You see, we live in a world that is obsessed with results, with outcomes, with the destination. And there is nothing wrong with having a destination. In fact, I have said many times that a person without a clear goal is like a ship without a rudder, drifting wherever the current decides to take them. But here is what I have come to understand after years of study, reflection, and observation of both successful and unsuccessful men and women. The destination will come and go. It will arrive, satisfy you briefly, and then quietly become part of your past. But the person you forged yourself into on the road to that destination, that person remains. That is the only permanent prize life ever awards. Consider the young man who decides to build a business. He sets his goal. He works. He struggles. He fails and rises again. He learns patience where he once had none. He learns humility where pride once stood. He learns to keep his word when it would have been easier to break it. He learns to lead when fear told him to follow. Now, suppose that business fails entirely. Suppose the market shifts, or the timing was wrong, or circumstances conspired against him. Did he lose everything? No, he did not, because the discipline he built cannot be taken from him. The character he forged under pressure, that stays. The courage he developed in the dark hours of doubt, that is now part of the fiber of who he is, and a man with that kind of inner wealth will simply build again. Better. Faster. Wiser. The world cannot bankrupt a person of genuine character. It can only test them, and in the testing, add to them. This is the great secret that most people are never taught. We are told to work for our goals, but very few of us are told to work on ourselves while pursuing them. And there is a world of difference between those two ideas. Working for a goal means you want what is at the end of the road. Working on yourself means you understand that you are the road. Every morning you wake up, you are standing at the drafting table of your own character. Every decision you make, every small act of courage or cowardice, honesty or evasion, discipline or surrender, you are drawing a line on that table. And over weeks, months, and years, those lines accumulate into a portrait of a human being. The only question worth asking is this: what does that portrait look like? Now, I do not want you to think this is merely philosophical. It is deeply practical. The person you are today is the sum total of the choices you have made up until this moment. Not your circumstances, not your upbringing, though those matter, not the economy, not your age, not the opportunities you were or were not given. Your character is the result of your chosen responses to everything life has handed you. And since you chose it, you can choose differently beginning today. Here is how. First, decide with absolute clarity the kind of person you intend to become. Not the things you want to have, the person you want to be. Write it down. Describe that person's values, habits, and way of moving through the world. Second, find one daily practice that requires you to act as that person before you feel like it. Discipline before motivation. Action before inspiration. This is the forge. Third, when you fall short, and you will, do not condemn yourself into paralysis. Simply return. Return to the standard. Return to the commitment. The greatest men and women in history were not those who never failed. They were those who never quit returning. Fourth, guard your associations carefully. You will, over time, absorb the standards of the people you spend the most hours with. Choose those people as carefully as you would choose a surgeon. And fifth, measure your progress not by what you have accumulated, but by who you are demonstrating yourself to be. By your integrity under pressure. By your kindness when no one is watching. By your continued forward motion when every reason to stop seems reasonable. There is a central truth I want to leave with you tonight. A truth I believe with everything I have. What you get by achieving your goals is not nearly as important as what you become by achieving them. Read that again. Let it settle. Because the day you truly understand that sentence, the day it moves from your mind into your bones, is the day your entire relationship with effort, failure, and growth changes forever. You will no longer fear the difficult path. You will seek it, because you will understand that the difficult path is the manufacturing floor of the human soul. Every great life ever lived was built the same way. One decision at a time, one standard held, one character trait chosen and then practiced not once, but 10,000 times until it was no longer an effort, but simply who that person was. What you get by achieving your goals is not nearly as important as what you become by achieving them. I want you to think about something for just a moment. Think about the last time you told yourself you would change. Maybe it was a quiet promise made in the dark hours of the night. Maybe it was a firm decision made on the first morning of a new year. Maybe it was a whisper you made to yourself after a moment of embarrassment, or failure, or regret. You meant it. I know you did. And yet, somehow weeks passed, and the person looking back at you in the mirror was not the one you had promised yourself you would become. And so you concluded, perhaps without even realizing it, that people simply are who they are. That character is something handed out at birth, like eye color or bone structure. That some people are simply born disciplined, born courageous, born honest, and that if those qualities did not arrive with you, they were never meant to be yours. I need you to stay with me here, because that conclusion, that quiet, resigned acceptance, is the most expensive belief a human being can carry through a lifetime, and millions of people are carrying it right now. Walking through their days half, convinced that the better version of themselves is simply not available to them, so they wait, for the right moment, for the right circumstances. For some morning they will wake up and simply feel different, feel ready, feel like the person they always imagined they could be. And life, with its indifference and its speed, does not pause to accommodate that waiting. Now here is what I have come to know, and what the great thinkers, philosophers, and builders of history have confirmed over and over again through both their words and the evidence of their lives. Character is not an inheritance. It is a construction. It is built the way a craftsman builds a fine piece of work, slowly, deliberately, with attention paid to every detail. Not in a single dramatic moment of transformation, but in the accumulation of small, chosen actions repeated with consistency over time. Every morning you rise, you are handed the raw materials. Time, attention, choice. What you do with those materials in the next hour, and the hour after that, is not determined by your past. It is determined by your intention. When you choose honesty in a moment where dishonesty would have been easier, you lay a brick. When you push forward on your work, when distraction is pulling at you from every direction, you lay a brick. When you hold your standard quietly, without recognition, without applause, you lay a brick. And one day you look up, and there stands a person of remarkable character. Not because life granted it, but because you built it, choice by choice, morning by morning, one deliberate act at a time. That person was always available to you. You simply had to begin building, and you can begin right now. I want to ask you something personal tonight. Have you ever worked toward something, truly worked toward it, and then arrived only to feel strangely empty? The achievement was real. The result was exactly what you had pictured. And yet something quiet inside you said, "Is this all there is?" Perhaps you dismissed that feeling. Perhaps you buried it quickly under the next goal, the next target, the next thing to pursue. Because to sit with that emptiness felt dangerous. It suggested that all the effort, all the sacrifice, all the years of pushing had somehow pointed you in the wrong direction. And so a subtle, creeping doubt begins to settle in, a doubt that perhaps goals themselves are hollow, that ambition is a kind of trap, that the whole enterprise of striving and reaching and building is nothing more than an elaborate distraction from a destination that will always disappoint upon arrival. And so people stop, not all at once, gradually. They scale back their dreams quietly. They begin to protect themselves from the sting of arrival by never fully committing to the journey. They move through their days doing just enough, never fully invested, never fully alive to the possibility of what they could become. And the years pass, and the unlived life accumulates silently in the background. Now I want you to understand something. That emptiness you felt upon arrival was not evidence that the goal was wrong. It was evidence that you were looking at the goal incorrectly. Here is the truth of it. A goal is not a destination in the way we commonly imagine. It is a direction. It is a compass point that orients you, that gets you out of bed with purpose, that gives your daily decisions a reason and your daily effort a meaning. The goal is the organizing principle of your growth. But the curriculum, the actual education, happens on the road. Every obstacle you navigate on the way to your goal teaches you something that no classroom ever could. Every setback refines your judgment. Every moment of uncertainty, met with continued forward motion, deepens your courage. Every temptation to quit, resisted, strengthens the very fiber of your will. You do not graduate when you reach the goal. You graduate through the 10,000 moments between here and there. This is why two people can pursue the identical goal and arrive as entirely different human beings. One traveled consciously, learning, adapting, growing deliberately at every turn. The other traveled impatiently, focused only on the finish line, blind to everything the road was offering. Same destination, entirely different education. So the question is never simply, what do I want to achieve? The deeper question, the one worth sitting with tonight, is this: who will I need to become to earn it? And am I paying attention to that becoming every single day? Because the goal will arrive and recede into your history. But the person the journey built, that person walks forward with you into everything that comes next. That person is the real reward, and that reward is earned one conscious step at a time. Begin walking. I want you to consider something that most people would rather not think about. Think about the person you were 5 years ago, the promises you made to yourself, the standards you intended to keep, the habits you were going to build, the version of yourself you were absolutely certain at the time that you were moving toward. Now ask yourself honestly, how much of that promise did you keep? For most people, the answer carries a quiet sting. Not because they are lazy, not because they lack intelligence or talent or genuine desire, but because somewhere between the intention and the execution, something collapsed. The effort came in bursts. The commitment arrived with enthusiasm and departed with the first real inconvenience. The resolution held firm until life pushed back, and then, almost without noticing, the standard quietly lowered itself. And now there is a lingering suspicion, a private, uncomfortable thought that perhaps sustained effort is simply beyond reach. That other people, the ones who seem to have their lives constructed with precision and purpose, were simply wired differently, born with some internal mechanism that keeps them moving when everything else says stop. And if that suspicion hardens into belief, a person stops attempting altogether. They protect themselves from the disappointment of another collapsed effort by never fully launching one. They admire discipline from a distance, convinced it belongs to someone else's life, and another year passes, and the architecture of a great life remains, as always, unbuilt. Now let me tell you what discipline actually is, because I believe it has been deeply misunderstood. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is not a gift distributed unevenly at birth. It is not the absence of struggle or the presence of superhuman willpower. It is something far more accessible and far more honest than any of that. Discipline is simply a decision, made in advance, about how you will behave when the moment of choice arrives. That is all it is, a pre-made decision, an agreement with yourself that does not require renegotiation every single morning. The person who exercises daily does not wake up and debate whether today feels like a good day for it. They made that decision once, in a calm and clear moment, and they honor it now as a matter of identity rather than mood. And here is what consistency does over time that nothing else can replicate. Each kept commitment, no matter how small, deposits something into the account of your self-belief. Each morning you do what you said you would do. You send a message to the deepest part of yourself that you are a person who can be trusted. And as that trust accumulates, the effort required to maintain the standard actually decreases. What once demanded enormous willpower gradually becomes simply who you are. This is the architecture of a great life. Not grand gestures, not rare bursts of heroic effort, but the quiet, unglamorous, daily honoring of a standard you set for yourself in your best moment and then carried forward into every ordinary one. Stone by stone, day by day, without waiting for applause or perfect conditions. That is how great lives are constructed, and the foundation is available to you today. Lay one stone, then another. That is enough to begin. I want you to sit with something uncomfortable for just a moment. Think about a time when an opportunity arrived, a real one, a chance to step forward into something larger than your current circumstances. A door that opened, perhaps unexpectedly, in the direction of the life you had always quietly imagined for yourself. And something stopped you, not a lack of skill, not a lack of intelligence, not even a lack of desire. Something far more subtle and far more powerful than any of those things. a quiet internal voice that assessed the situation and concluded, with absolute conviction, that you were not quite the person that opportunity required, that the gap between who you were and what that moment demanded was simply too wide to cross. And so you stepped back. You found a reason. You reframed the hesitation as wisdom, as patience, as timing. You told yourself the moment was not right, that you would be ready when you had more experience, more credentials, more proof that you belonged in that larger space, and the door closed quietly, and life moved on. And the moment joined the long, unspoken list of moments that never became what they might have been. And perhaps this has happened not once, but many times. In different forms, wearing different disguises. And somewhere beneath the surface, a pattern has settled, a pattern of arriving at the threshold of something greater and retreating, reliably, back to the familiar. Not because the world rejected you, but because some part of you rejected the world's invitation on the world's behalf. Now I want to tell you why this happens, because understanding it is the first and most essential step toward changing it permanently. Every human being carries an internal image of themselves. A portrait built over years, constructed from experience and feedback, and the conclusions drawn from both success and failure. And that internal image functions as a governor, the same way a mechanical governor limits the speed of an engine regardless of how much fuel is available. You may have abundant talent. You may have genuine opportunity directly in front of you. But if the image you hold of yourself does not include a person worthy of that talent and that opportunity, you will find a way, consciously or otherwise, to perform in alignment with the image rather than the potential. This is not weakness. It is simply how human beings are constructed. And here is the remarkable truth on the other side of that understanding. The image is not permanent. It is not carved into stone. It was built by experience and interpretation, and it can be rebuilt the same way, deliberately, systematically, through the accumulation of new evidence that you feed to yourself daily. Every time you attempt something that stretches your current self-image and survive the attempt, the image expands. Every time you hold a higher standard for yourself and meet it, the portrait upgrades. Every time you act as the person you intend to become, before you feel fully entitled to that identity, you are quietly redrawing the boundary of what you believe is possible for you. This is inner work, unglamorous, invisible, and absolutely essential. Because no strategy, no mentor, no fortunate circumstance will carry you beyond the ceiling of your own self-concept. The outer life will always, with remarkable precision, mirror the inner one, but raise the inner image, and the outer life has no choice but to follow. You are not limited by your history. You are only limited by the story you continue to tell yourself about what that history means. Tell a different story tonight. Then go live it tomorrow. That is where everything begins. I want you to think about something tonight that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Think about the small things you do every day, not the grand decisions, not the defining moments, not the crossroads choices that announce themselves with drama and consequence. I am talking about the ordinary, unremarkable, easily overlooked actions that fill the hours between waking and sleeping. The way you respond when someone tests your patience. Whether you pick up the book or reach for the distraction. Whether you honor the commitment you made to yourself this morning or quietly negotiate it down to something more comfortable by afternoon. Whether you speak with honesty when a convenient half-truth would have passed without notice. These moments feel inconsequential. They feel too small to matter, too routine to carry any real weight in the larger story of who you are becoming. And that feeling, that quiet dismissal of the small and the ordinary, may be the most costly illusion a person can live inside. Because while you are telling yourself that these moments do not count, they are counting. Every single one of them, with an accuracy and an impartiality that nothing in the external world can match. And so people drift, not dramatically, not in ways that are easy to detect from the inside, but gradually, almost imperceptibly, the daily choices accumulate into a direction. And that direction, followed long enough without examination, leads to a destination that was never consciously chosen, a life that simply happened, a character that assembled itself from neglect rather than intention. And one morning, perhaps years from now, a person looks into the mirror and meets someone they do not fully recognize. Not a stranger, but not quite the person they once promised themselves they would become. And they cannot point to a single moment where it all went wrong, because it did not go wrong in a single moment. It went wrong in 1,000 small ones that were each dismissed as too insignificant to matter. Now here is what I want you to truly understand. This same mechanism, this same quiet, relentless accumulation, works equally and oppositely in your favor the moment you begin using it with intention. Every repeated action carves a path, neurologically, psychologically, and in terms of pure identity. The person who reads for 30 minutes each morning is not simply more informed than they were yesterday. They are becoming, by daily repetition, a person who values knowledge. The person who keeps their word in small matters is not simply reliable in those instances. They are constructing, brick by quiet brick, the character of someone whose word means something. Repetition is not merely a method of skill development. It is the primary mechanism of identity formation. You do not decide who you are in a single moment of resolution. You decide who you are in the 10,000 ordinary moments that follow that resolution. In the moments when no one is watching. In the moments when the easier choice is available and the better choice requires just enough effort to make it genuinely optional. Those are the moments that build the person. And the beautiful, deeply practical truth is this. You do not need to transform your entire life today. You do not need a dramatic overhaul or a perfect plan or ideal conditions. You need one repeated action, chosen deliberately, aligned with the person you have decided to become. Perform today, and tomorrow, and the day after that, because that action, carried forward with consistency, will do something that willpower and motivation alone never could. It will stop feeling like effort. It will start feeling like you. And on the morning that happens, on the morning the mirror reflects back someone who acts with integrity, not because they are trying to, but simply because that is who they are, you will understand what this work was always truly about. Not achievement, not recognition, not the accumulation of results. The person. Always the person. Begin today, with one action. Repeated with quiet, unshakable intention. That is the whole instruction. Everything else follows. That is available to you, to every one of you listening tonight. Not someday. Not when conditions improve. Not when you feel more ready, more confident, more deserving. Now, tonight, with your very next choice. So here is my charge to you as we close this evening. Before you sleep tonight, make one decision. One concrete, deliberate decision about the person you intend to become. Write it down. Commit to one daily action that reflects the standard of that person. Not a grand gesture, not a reinvention, just one honest, disciplined step. And then take that step tomorrow morning before you do anything else. And the morning after that, and the morning after that, because that is how character is built. Quiet persistently, without applause, in the ordinary moments that most people let slip through their fingers without a second thought. The world is full of people waiting to become who they were meant to be. Be someone who stopped waiting. The person you are becoming is the greatest work of your life. Treat them that way. Good night and good thinking.